All right. Good evening, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon. Whenever you're watching, it's Give It to the People Live. I'm Chisa Pennix-Brown, and today I have a wonderful guest on with me that I've known for years. And he is super talented because, we don't bring on nonsense. We always bring on good people. And what we do at Give It to the People is we highlight BIPOC businesses, and that is Black, Indigenous, and people of color, women-owned businesses, nonprofits that maybe other people don't necessarily know about. Some people do, but we definitely want to make sure that the people that we bring on are inspirational to you and that we get into some of the questions that maybe you may have. So if you feel like you want to ask questions, you can go ahead and type them into the question section. If you just want to listen, then just go ahead and listen. And just FYI for everybody, what we do afterwards is we put it on Instagram TV, we put it on YouTube, and on the Give It to the People podcast. So this way you will have multiple opportunities to be able to either visually see and or hear everything that's going on this evening. And my co-host is the wonderful Tammy. So this is Tammy Faye Brown. And whenever people say something really great, whenever we have to kind of like, for the people in the back that can't hear it, Tammy comes out just so that this way we can highlight those great comments. And so I know he's going to drop something on us. I'm actually really excited about this. Y'all don't even understand because I think often you get to see people in passing, you get to see people at events, but sometimes you don't just get to sit down and just talk. So that's what we're going to do this evening. And I'm hoping that everything is working like it's supposed to. So Dasan, I want to welcome you out and say hi. How are you this evening?
I'm doing wonderful. I'm glad to be here. Glad that
Yes.
you're having me, and so excited to talk to you.
Yeah. I know, because we don't get to do this often. Like I said, we always see each other in passing, but if you can give people, it doesn't have to be like the long drawn out bio, reference, because you have so many different accolades that we could attach to your name, but just give them a little synopsis about who Dasan Ahanu is.
So, I'm a artist, cultural organizer. Primarily, my thing is to create. I create art. I also create capacity, and my focus is on community. And so
Okay.
that's what I do.
All right. And with that, art is in so many different forms. And so most people probably know you originally from being a poet. That's probably the thing that people see the most. So when people are looking at that and they're kind of like, okay, poetry, I think that some people, because when we met, this was back in the Love Jones days, when poetry was just doing all the poetry things before everybody started snapping and they used to just clap like they had some sense, before everybody started reading everything off their phones, when you actually had books where you wrote. You remember those days? So it's like when I see stuff now and I'm like, people are looking at their phones, I'm like, oh, I remember the days when people would actually memorize poems. Like, it seems like, I think to me, technology is always great, but sometimes it kind of throws off the art form of what we're doing or what needs to be done. So with poetry, what made you even decide to go that route in the first place?
Well, I was looking for an outlet. And that was the primary thing. And stumbled into an open mic and sort of, found some affirmation, found a place that felt comfortable and familiar. And it was welcoming. And so that was everything that I needed to kind of, feel good about sharing my thoughts and ideas. And found out that that was what I was looking for, was a place to be able to share those kinds of things that I just didn't have a chance to share otherwise.
Okay. All right. Now, how close would you say, because I know that you've done, you have a really large discography for some of the things that you've done. How close do you say the poetry is in relation to like when you rap? Like, do you consider them different art forms, or do you just kind of consider, okay, are you making, I guess, a different point when you're trying to do poetry as opposed to when you're focusing on hip hop? Like, what do you feel as far as that goes?
It's not a different art form, but it is a different mindset. And I think that that's a big piece of it. is that the mindset is different, especially for me. So one of the things that I appreciate and enjoy about poetry is the room that it gives me and that it gives my thoughts. And I use all of that room.
Okay.
So, music, when you're rhyming, when you're rapping, you're a product of the beat.
Mm-hmm.
There's a variety of different ways to approach the beat, but you have to there's a marriage between your vocals and your lyrics and the beat.
Mm-hmm.
With the poetry, the only thing that I'm married to is the room.
Mm-hmm.
And I have total control of what happens in that room. So I don't share I share that control with the audience, but in terms of like how I give them what I'm delivering, I'm the only one in control of that. On a record, I share that control with the producer.
Okay. Have you changed? Like, let's say it's the same poem,
Yeah,
but when you feel the energy of the room, maybe you perform it a little bit differently. Has that been something that you've experienced over time too?
always. I mean,
Yeah.
one of the things I always teach is that the first thing that you do is you kind of get used to the piece and you start to think about how you want to bring it to life. So you get comfortable with the piece in your body. So, memorizing it, getting body motions, where you feel comfortable, where you want to be in the piece is first. After that, then you can open yourself up to the energy in the room. And then that becomes a part of the dance. But yes, the energy in the room is always a help. It not only helps me, but it also helps the audience listening. Uh, my recognition of that energy and my ability to use it and manipulate it in terms of how I'm performing enhances the way that they hear the poem, the way they feel it. And then we start to both dance, their reactions, what they feed me. There's like this subtle understanding that happens where they're like, oh, then they start to feed me more because they know I'm feeding off of it.
I like that. I like that. And I mean, I think it can kind of be the same thing, like if you're performing a record, because it's kind of like you still have the same words, but if you change that beat up, right?
Yep.
It feels totally, completely different, right? And so you can always tell, and I love hip hop. Anybody that knows me knows I love hip hop. So it won't matter what the beat is. If I know the song, I'm gonna be able to rhyme it, whether it's fast or it's slow. You speed it up, you change the beat, and it's still gonna give you that thing. But the feeling is just totally different. So I need to know this just so I can really assess something. Who's your favorite rapper? Never asked you that, but I need to know. Favorite rapper?
Favorite. So my favorite is Sean Price.
Oh, Sean P. Okay, I was not expecting that.
A lot of
Oh, okay.
one, but that's my favorite. There's a lot of folks that I really look up to and admire, but in terms of my favorite, Sean
Huh.
Price is my favorite rapper. It's
So
just
is it the punchlines? Is it the voice? What is it about Sean P?
all of that and the presence. So one of the things that you were just describing about is that presence, and his presence, his charisma, his personality comes across in the records, and it comes across so heavy that sometimes you overlook exactly what he's doing in the lyrics. They seem really simple, but what he's actually doing is really not simple at all. And it's really, really literary. There's a lot of really particular devices that he uses in his, but it just fits. It is just all of it, and it's just fun. And he knows that on stage, and is totally willing to like embrace, the energy of a hip hop crowd and command of the room, um, the beat juggling, like just a real understanding of where he is as an MC. And I love it. I admire that authenticness and that honesty. Um, I admire some other folks, but you know, some of the other folks that I admire, like Black Thought and Nas, like they're so cool, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Like I
Mm-hmm.
love, like some of my like the MCs that I really really love are so cool.
Mm-hmm.
Don is not cool.
No, he's brash. He's brolic. He's in your face. Yeah, he's
There's the part that,
definitely difficult.
you know, and I love it. I love it. I love it to death.
I love that. So you did name my other two, because first of all, my favorite is Nas, and then my second is going to be Black Thought. And it's just something that I think that, well, first of all, something that you definitely have in common with Nas, which is the whole going to Harvard thing. So I want to know, like, how did that even come about? You know what I'm saying? Because I think that sometimes people have aspirations and people look up to Harvard now. Well, I guess they've always looked up to Harvard as kind of like a pinnacle of a being there kind of thing, and it's like a recognition. But what made you want to go and be involved in the program up there?
You know, well, just one is Harvard, and when I found out that they had an archive, I was just fascinated. You know,
Mm-hmm.
fascinated by what that was. I had also heard about the archive in Cornell, because they had gotten a huge collection of Universal Zulu Nation stuff, and
Mm-hmm.
so this idea of an archive, of a hip hop archive, was just fascinating. We didn't have, you know, we didn't have the hip hop music. Like we didn't have a space. We didn't have
Mm-hmm.
the space at the Smithsonian. Like we didn't have those things. And so to see that there was like this kind of attention dedicated to hip hop, was amazing. And I was, you know, I was in higher ed. I was teaching. I was an assistant professor at St. Augustine's University in Raleigh, North Carolina, you know, trying to integrate culture and art and everything into what I was doing on campus. And I was like, cool. But what made it even, you know, more tangible for me and really brought it close to home was that we had two folks in Durham who got to participate.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So Knife Wonder went, and then he had the brilliant idea to have it chronicled and then
Mm-hmm.
debut a documentary called The Wonder Year.
Yep.
And so one of the filmmakers who have been doing a lot of Jamla videos went with him up. And so seeing that and you know him and the interaction with him and Dr. Morgan from the archive and Dr. Gates, and it was great. But then
Mm-hmm.
Mark Neal went.
Mm-hmm.
And here's two people from who are right here around me, but also two people I know, you know, that I is to work with and talk to. And so I reached out and I had a conversation with Knife first, and Knife was like, "Yeah, like you
Do
really
it.
should."
Yeah.
Uh, and so he was the first person to encourage me. He was like, "Think about what you want to kind of focus on, and then let's chop it up." And so I did. He was like, "Okay, I think you got it. I think you know this is good. This will work." And
Mm-hmm.
then I talked to Mark, and
Mm-hmm.
Mark was encouraging as well. And so that kind of put me in a place where I was like, all right, let's see what
Yeah.
happens.
Now, what was your experience like though? Because I think, like, I was just listening to Nori's podcast, and Darul was like, I went over to Harvard to do the business thing and everything, and I think that a lot of people, Swizz went and did some stuff there. So I think that a lot of people that I see personally, that are in hip hop, that are in the poetry realm, that are in this artistic realm, are saying that there's a business aspect that they want to embrace of it, and so that's probably one of the main reasons why they're going, but also to maybe learn some stuff that they wouldn't have learned otherwise. So what was your experience like there once you got there?
It was amazing because you're in a place, partly because of how it sees itself as an academic institution where
Mm-hmm.
anything is fair game.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it is a place that prides itself on encouraging deep exploration. Intellectualism thrives there, but it's also an incubator for thought, which
Mm-hmm.
is you know why certain institutions historically keep coming up, and it's about the way that it incubates thought and the way that students who are in that environment think about the world. And so for me, I'm curious by nature, so you put me there. And one of the beautiful things about the fellowships is that they really give you like open access. So you have access to the libraries, you have access to programming on campus. Like it's like here, it's all here. What do you want to do with it? So I was a kid in a candy store. And in terms of hip hop, you know, it was, the archive was full. And one of the things about the archive at Harvard that is distinct is that it's a research archive.
Okay.
It's full of artifacts like you would normally expect. It's not full of historical artifacts. The one at Cornell is research archive. And so what you find there is it chronicles all of the research and all of the study of hip hop that's been done. So all of the books, articles, documentary, like all of this chronicling is what you just through the archive. And so that's also a different kind of archive. And I'm like, word, that means kind of conversations are happening about the culture. As someone from within the culture and an artist, I can see things that I agree with, disagree with, but it gives me a real frame of mind and a lens to how the academic world is looking at the culture. And I enjoyed that. You know, I enjoyed it. For regardless of what I found, just being able to rest and sit in that. But then there was so many other intersections. Hip hop kept showing up all across campus. Questlove came to talk about food. And that was he had a book. He's a big foodie, and he had a book come out. And so a whole different department brought him, you know, to do a residency around food. Student organization brought Pusha T to have a conversation. There was a politician, I think my beloved politician from Houston who was there, Bun B to be in conversation. But that politician was there doing a residency in a whole nother area, brought Bun B. You know, so like there was just everywhere I looked, there was just opportunities to dig a little deeper. And then of course, just the folks who came to stop by the archive. So it was great.
No, I love that. I love it. I mean, I think it's an amazing experience just to be able to have access to that. So with that, you know, when we look at, and I say this all the time, this is not about to be, I don't know, it might be a little shade, but it's not really shade. I feel like we have so many colleges here, and specifically HBCUs. I didn't go to HBCU. I went to PWI. I went to Elon. But it seems like PWIs bring people, right? And they look at things, like you said, through a different lens, right? So they're bringing people for different reasons. So it seems like sometimes when certain colleges or certain institutions could bring people to give the business influence of it, and you know, that's one of the things that I think is really important. Like the history of it is definitely important too, but there is so much that hip hop has been able to bridge that gap in so many different areas. So like even with you saying, okay, well look, I'm an artist. I do the poetry, I do the hip hop, but then also being able to transition that into being a teacher, to be able to teach other people and to facilitate that learning and to give people a different perspective about just the worldview that they should have. You know, do you think that there is some type of disconnect with people understanding that people evolve and that there should be a little bit more focus in the business side of things? Because you know, I know, you know, and I know it was a lot of people that started out way back in the day, you know, and they're not doing it anymore because they couldn't make it be sustainable, right? So all those people that were like, I'm just doing it for the love, and the love had them be broke, right? And they end up being starving artists and not understanding that money needs to be attached with what you're doing because you have a skill set that people want to pay for. And in my opinion, you always were like that. You know what I'm saying? So that's never been a thing where you were just like, okay, I just want to just come do everything for free. No, you understood that commerce was a part of what was supposed to happen with the art. So do some of the institutions kind of understand that they need to just have a commerce portion to that to make students be a little bit more aware, or even the community, if they open it up to the community in general?
The easy answer, largely no.
Oh, they don't understand.
And honestly, and I've had this conversation with, you know, artists, and especially musicians who are also music professors. There is not an in-depth conversation, an honest and authentic conversation about the business of it all. There just isn't. And part of it is, and it's understandable, is the, you know, craft is first, and craft should be first.
Yeah.
But and part of that is, but there's so much, there's so much else to
Mm-hmm.
navigating as an artist, and it doesn't get necessarily get easier when you're elite in your craft,
Mm. Come
as
on.
the world doesn't necessarily care about that um, initially. Like there is
Uh-huh.
a point where you being elite breaks through, but we also see a lot of people who aren't that good get opportunities. So there is a place where it starts to filter, but it's not
Uh-huh.
the beginning the way that we're taught. Like it's definitely not at the beginning. So,
Yeah.
and this gets to why the difference in institutions embracing hip hop culture and embracing art and all that. Um, there's certain institutions, and unfortunately, our HBCUs are like that. But a lot of that is our elders,
Mm.
who have a particular view of pop culture.
Mm.
And I think in a lot of ways they want to try to shield us from it and make these institutions places where they're able to filter out some of the negative influences of pop culture and the way they see it impacting young folks, and
Mm-hmm.
want to like wrap their arms around, which is what elders should do.
Mm-hmm.
Problem with that is that it doesn't take into consideration how instrumental pop culture is globally. And
Yeah.
so I understand the reason behind it, but it's also not very aware.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you lean into it, what you'll see this world where um, you have to equip artists in a way that they have an understanding of their foundations, their roots. So you can hone craft, but you have to connect them to something. And for HBCUs, this should be common because it's Sankofa. You have to connect them to something so that they can stay
The
grounded.
past. Mm-hmm.
Have to give them an understanding of craft, which is there right now, and you
Mm-hmm.
have to give them a sense of how to evaluate and analyze what's around them so that they can navigate moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, what you do is you can ground them in traditions and you can hone craft. And then when I'm talking to musicians, they're telling stories about top top level musicians coming out of these music programs.
Mm-hmm.
10 years, they're not playing.
That's one of my fears when it comes to now. And I mean, you know how, of course, knowing what you know now, what would you have done different? Because XYZ, right? So I think about, all of the things that, even when we were doing Society of Wordsmiths back in the day and all of the poetry things and everything. And I know everybody doesn't know about that, but that's because y'all not grown. Okay. Grown people know all of it way back in the day, right? So what things would you have done different knowing what you know now? And when you see people that came up at the same time and they're doing like what you're doing, or they're in different platforms or in different countries, to me, the smartest people were the ones that figured out I need to get paid for this. Like you can be just as wonderful and talented and everything. And then I feel like, just to me, if I'm genuinely an artist, I want to be able to live off of what I do. I don't want to have to go do something that's totally against what my passion is really leading me to do. And that's what I think happens a lot of times. Or like I was reading a thing where they were talking about Red Fox. When Red Fox died, he didn't have any money, right? And so Eddie Murphy paid for his funeral. Red Fox. I mean, one of the best comedians ever. How did you die with no money, right? Like, how does this type of stuff happen? And I think a lot of times it's that nobody is educating on get this money and do what you need to do. So, like, what made you say, okay, listen, I love the poetry thing and I can do that. And you also have, so I want you to let them know like about Black Poetry Theater, but then I also want to do some other things where I'm still able to use my talents in a way where I can definitely make money with them too. So hosting and all of the other little aspects that happen that make you a well-rounded individual where you're not like a starving artist. So talk about that.
So, there's one thing that I appreciate is when I got started and talking to folks who are out and kind of grinding and on tour and doing things.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of talk about hustle. There's a lot of talk about the grind and how to how to book, gig culture, and how to, how to get another gig, and that.
Yeah.
How I ended up in the position that I was in and on the path that I was in is I hate touring.
Oh.
I don't like gig culture. I love shows. I love new audiences. I love experiences. Like I said, I'm a curious teacher. I do not like the road. And so what it made me do, and this is a conversation, there's a really dope person in Greensboro who does a lot of events, Josephus Thompson. And we used to have this conversation because he felt the same. And it's like, if you're not going to go get it, how do you establish a foothold at home where you can balance when you need to be away and what you can do when you're home? The other thing about this is artists all the time talk about getting no love at home, and they have to go somewhere else and blow up in order to be able to get people at home to respect them.
I was going to definitely address that, so I'm glad you brought it up. Okay, go on.
How do you navigate that when folks at home are really familiar with you, and and you can't really, it's hard to get them to give you your worth when you're the person that they knew grew like, so they don't want to do that. You feel really familiar. You down the street, like you hear, like, there's a lot of liberty that your home takes with you, and a lot of things that, a lot of things they expect. So what doesn't get talked about, and if I had to do it all over again, is one is that we're the hustle is great, but what I know now that I didn't know then is what we should have been talking about is an entrepreneurial mindset and not a hustle mindset.
Come on.
And there's a difference between the two. One is a hustle mindset is a working mindset. To hustle is to work. And if you're touring and you're relying on touring, we see a lot of folks do this. Like you can't stop touring. Everything, your life is built around this. Neural mindset is about building. You build a thing and you build it in a way that it becomes something of worth to people. And a lot of entrepreneurs ideally build to sell so that they can then do something else. So, which is not a small business mindset. Now, you as an artist, you can have a small business mindset, and that's about building, but it's building something that you're going to maintain and hold over time. And honestly, neither one of those. You might hear folks refer to artists as small businesses or as businessmen. Jay-Z said, I'm not a businessman, I'm a businessman.
Businessman.
Entrepreneurial mindset is what's missing. What's big about that is that if you have an entrepreneurial mindset, then what you're always looking for is you're always evaluating and looking for, not a particular market, but varying markets. You're like looking for where you can place yourself in your partnerships. Like you're looking for opportunity. You're open to opportunity. You're looking for opportunity, right? Because you're building a thing, and in order to build it, you have to build a base. Small business is about refining what you're offering and continuing to let people know it's there and it's available. But that your mindset is what I wish I had have gotten then, because the second piece that I learned later that I sort of understood, but I didn't know how to articulate it until I got older and also started working on the other side of art and culture and entertainment, is what's most valuable. What's most valuable, and artists may disagree with me, but it's very real. What's most valuable to the artist is your skill sets, not your. The reason being is because the way society is socialized is it's socialized to embrace the art, not the artist. So we have this culture where artists go out of their way to make themselves a brand and make themselves a personality. Like they have to keep including themselves and centering themselves to make sure that they go with their art. Otherwise, especially outside of any commercial industry, because if you're a commercial industry, then to whoever's making money, popularizing you and your art is beneficial. But most of us are independent artists. And so folks will come grab your art and fall in love with your art, and they'll meet you in a moment, shake your hand and thank you for the art. And what travels is your art. What your name goes with the art. You don't go with the art. And so you have to, you have a moment to kind of introduce them to yourself. And as performers, if you, like Karis once said, it's insurance. A great performance means you get invited back. That's part of making people believe in you, the artist. Otherwise, the song, they'll just go play the song. But they're not showing up to the show. Them playing the song does not put money in your pocket to pay your rent.
It just puts it in there one time, and that's it. It's not going to be a continual growth kind of thing. And that's an important thing that you're bringing up. Like,
yes. Yeah. So having them remember the artist, and this is the thing I love about listening to Ryan Leslie talk about some of the things that he was able to pull off late in his career when we all thought he disappeared, is he started going direct to consumer because he realized if he could keep them engaged with him, then he could build a sustainable model for himself where folks, would rock with whatever. He made the artist important, and then they were willing and able to buy whatever he was putting and engage whatever he's putting out. But the reason why I say that is that your skill sets are important because the skill sets that you're honing as an artist are valuable to a lot of different people. And, where you can sustain yourself and find streams of income for yourself is by monetizing the skill sets. It's offering up to people the skill sets. And then what you can do is you can afford to continue to develop your art. This is about survival and sustainability. You got to stay in it long enough to be discovered. And so that means you have to be able to hold so it's just skill sets. And you can hustle those all day long. You never have to compromise your art. You never have to compromise what you're creating. You use your skill sets. And that's not getting taught. And that's across many different industries where if you understand why you're able to create the way you are, or if you're able to do self-assessment and understand your way of thinking, and then you can give that and offer that up, and and you can charge whatever you charge. But that's
let me tell you.
Yep. So that's what I wish I had.
You know what? You have said so much that is so in alignment with my spirit, the way that I teach people, because I keep telling people, I'm like, look, you get to a point where, and I look at everything from a business standpoint and a marketing standpoint. You get to a point where you run out of time, right? So if you don't have any more time, then think about how you could clone yourself and replicate what you do, right? Because it's only going to be 24 hours in a day. And as much as you want to and however you allocate it, if you can take your skill set, like you said, and teach somebody else how to do something because they don't know how to do it. And it's the simplest things, right? So I'm reading this thing they're talking about, it's a video that tells people how to create a PDF, and people love that. And last year, I'm working with people because it's COVID. They're trying to get money. They're trying to do stuff. And do you know I had to do a webinar to show people how to create a PDF because they didn't know how to do it right? It's things that are simple. But when you talk about art, your way of thinking about how to structure a poem, your way, it comes up and like, think about it. You got a haiku and it tells you what to do with the haiku, but you can make your own haiku, right? But then how you think about approaching a poem and using all different kinds of resources, and then also kind of tapping into what's happening right now, that's a skill set that everybody doesn't have, right? And so when you see things like, I think of like Alicia Keys. Alicia Keys, to me, is a great artist, wonderful, talented, everything. But what is sustainable about Alicia, to me, is she constantly makes music that she knows is going to be in somebody's commercial or somebody's movie, right? John Legend is doing the same thing. Common seems to be doing the same kind of thing. If I make a certain type of music that is focused in this area and kind of for this, that's going to be the thing that they're going to play over and over and over again. And then I can still go be pro-Black and do my pro-Black thing and do that when I want to. But it's something that they've realized and they tap into, like, let's do this because this is going to keep getting played, right? So I just saw the commercial with Montel Jordan. One song, right? But it goes in perpetuity. And I guarantee you, his children's is still going to be living off of this is how we do it. So it is that skill set that I think that people have to monetize, because what if you don't want to do it anymore? What if you get sick? Like you won't be able to travel, you won't be able to do those things, or if something like COVID happened, it was no more traveling. So how many people lived off of the road and then had to figure out, oh, let me get online. People still want to do stuff. Let me figure out how to make money this way. And the people that already had some stuff set up online, already had things that they could sell, already had an audience, it gave them the ability to be able to just transfer that energy online and still get people to pay attention to it. So I have a really interesting question that I want to ask you, because technology to me, don't you wish like back in the day we had all of this social media? Like honestly, when it comes to promoting, not having to print flyers and put them on cars and do all of the things that you had to do back in the day, you don't have to do now. So how do you feel like technology has been better in relation to you being able to make money, hopefully when you sleep? And then the newest thing that's happening right now, and I'm hoping you're going to do one. So I don't know. I always prophesy on every one of these things to somebody because I get a feeling from people. And what I would love for you to do is to be able to like make $1 million with an NFT. So those are the things, like the technology now. Yeah, that one poem was great, but if somebody will buy that poem for $1 million, like that really would be the thing. So, what is your take on the ability to just be better with technology, and how are you using it in order to get, I don't know if it's more people, if you're getting them to buy stuff or whatever it is, just to know about you?
There's a lot of possibilities.
Mm-hmm.
Being with all the technology that we have at our grasp, and I think it empowers artists to have it. But one of the things that I think is short-sighted is that when I hear conversations about what technology and the internet and social media offers, is that it offers artists to be able to go to direct to their audience and to build
Mm-hmm.
fans and and do that. And that's true. That is true. But
Yeah.
once again, that thinking benefits. It does two things. One, it benefits those who have a big presence and being able to pull that off. It also benefits those who know how to manipulate, who learn the algorithm and can manipulate the system.
Yeah.
Because image and appearance is still very, very big. It's always going to be that way in pop culture. As
Mm-hmm.
long as there is a thing of being popular, image is going to be important. What it doesn't do is it doesn't talk about the other part of what technology has done, is that we had to catch up. Like you either had to catch up or be left behind.
Mm-hmm.
Us who caught up to figuring out how to make sure we're using this when we have to kind of regroup, because we read an article or start to see artists talking about this, that, and the other, and don't do an ad or do this or like all of the things that we have to do just to be able to help promote shows and whatever are additional skill sets.
That's true.
And our mindset, our creative mindset and approach to things, plus hard skills, in terms of using so many of us have an understanding of Adobe Photoshop. We're not graphic designers, but we had to come to a point where we're able to be able to navigate it in order to do the in-between work.
Yeah.
Between things that we have time to be able to get someone to really build. We have to create content, so we can't go to a designer we can't afford it. So what can we do? And then we got to learn how can we do it in a way that doesn't look crazy or cheesy, so that so there's not such a jump in quality when the flyer drops for an event or a show. We've got to learn apps. What apps? Which apps? Like some of us got used to coding. Which is one of those things, another one of those things I wish I had got on that I didn't. And so I have a certain savvy just from my background around tech, but there's still some things I wish I had jumped on, but some artists have. Think about the way, like even Erykah Badu having the thought during COVID to not to not just figure out how to continue to be able to engage, but I'm gonna take some money and let's get a platform built.
She is who I was definitely going to mention when it came to technology, because she seems like the first one, and I don't know, I watched a lot of those verses that was like, I am going to take every piece of this opportunity and make sure that I make money. So when I saw beforehand, she did the Bottle World Market, she was selling her t-shirts for her and Jill for the thing. Then how she was doing her platform, and I researched, like, how she was like, she didn't want to do this, she didn't want to have to do that, and how much it was going to cost, and why things had to be delayed. And her main thing was, I need to pay my people, because she was the person that was so used to touring. And then she was like, other people wanted to know how she did what she did. She would not, and I can just posit, if COVID didn't happen, she wouldn't have had to do that. She wouldn't have had to put all of that in. And then when she was talking about clearing her own songs, you know what I'm saying, with the record company, so she could play her own songs on it was like, it was so many different moving pieces to that. But guess what? She figured it out. And anytime you can sell incense and sell out an incense the way that she does that by the pussy, I'm just like, come on. What she is incredible to me when it comes to using technology in a way that I think suits her, right? And then she just made it such an immersive experience that it was like, yeah, people will pay to come to this. And she could have charged more, and she didn't. So I don't know. She was definitely one of them that used that and embraced it. So you make a good point that when you hear certain people and they're like, nah, I don't like the social media, I'm not doing that, I'm not on such and such. And it's just like, you can understand why, right? Because they didn't grow up with it, or like when you listen to the Locks and Chic, it's just like, it's people, they too much in your business. You don't want. I can understand that, but then at the same time, if putting out a post on a regular basis is going to increase your sales, it's going to increase your listens, it's also going to increase, once the world opens back up like it is now, that people want to come see you in real life because they haven't been able to. So that scarcity created a whole nother thing where you're like, I've got to go see such and such, and a new audience too.
Yeah. And there is, you cannot use any of these things and still do, because the way that our world is intergenerational. And money, the class and age line up, like it does. There's a lot of places where that shifts, and there's a lot of there's young people with disposable income, which is why the record industry continues to target young adults, 18 to 25 primarily. At about 30, you kind of age yourself out of their focus, because pocket of money available to thereafter. But there's young professionals and their new money. And then, there's a period of time where responsibility and family and life, so decisions but then there's another period of time when money opens back up again. And so you can, because there's money, but you can't move and not be tied to these things unless you've already made connections and built networks, and you've already put yourself in a position where there are folks in those spaces or in those rooms who either know your name or know your Otherwise, you have to utilize these tools to make sure that not only that you can make sure that you stay connected and your name is out there, but also you can stay aware of what's happening. And for me, if it's both artistically and professional, and as a business person, if I'm looking, artistically and professionally, then I'm mining. I'm not just posting, I'm mining social media for what's happening, because I get content for my work, but I also get content for these meetings I'm walking into. Because, and this is the thing about the skill sets, So for instance, for me, I'm a puzzle person. I put puzzles
Okay.
together. If you understand that about me, you understand why that made sense for me to get into as a teacher, as an educator, as an arts administrator, as a scholar. Like, you see me being able to pull things apart, take the pieces and put them back together in different ways. And to create new understandings, new perspectives and things. And I do that in my art as well. Here's the thing. What that means is that I also can sit in the room and I have the ability to synthesize. I have the ability to organize. Logistics, moving pieces. The design. When I sit and look at design thinking, I'm like, I get it, but we've been doing, like, there's these things that are happening in the business world that are going to inspire creative thinking that in a whole other world we have to hone in order to stay continuing to grow. I learned to look at the intersection. So when I walk into the room, I want to make sure I'm always equipped. So it's not just my expertise over the years, it's also being able to then take my expertise and be able to interpret what's happening right now in the real world and put it in the real world context, so I can help this room full of folks who are either aware or unaware understand how to effectively move. My advantage is that in addition to that, what I also have is a connection to art and culture. So if we want to spice this up and really put some flavor on it, we can do that too. So I use social media. The biggest benefit, and you asked me this question, the biggest benefit to me is not direct sales, and it's not getting people to shows. Like, I use social media for well. The biggest benefit for me financially has been how your social media puts my name in conversation so that it gets to the ear to people who are in these rooms, and also how it helps me stay equipped for when I get that phone call. Help me think about how to design programs, how to design events, what kind of experiences are we creating? What's really going on? And I don't have to like know everything a young person, like I don't have to know it all, but I have to have some sense. My background and expertise to be able to take that sense and be able to help use that to create whatever needs to happen for whoever I'm in the meeting with. And so the biggest benefit to me. But if I'm like, if I'm not on it,
if you're not on it, you do miss some things, right? And so just us being there, and like one of the things I think of is, I'm just so happy and so proud of Nas. Whoever is behind this marketing with mass appeal, I mean, I think that, one of the things that has always put people, like when you go with the Jay-Z Nas thing, is that Jay-Z, he always did better beats. I'm just going to be honest with that, right? But it was also that there was a marketing thing that was behind it. And as an independent artist, you don't have the same amount of money to do the marketing thing, right? So from what I'm understanding that you're saying is, listen, the shows, the individual sales are not where the bread and butter is. So what I'm doing is putting me in front of the decision makers who have big checks. And then we'll do the merchandising, and then we'll sell all the rest of the stuff. But if I don't sell one book, if I don't sell one CD, you don't download anything, I already got my check before I came, or it's going to be there as soon as I get there that night. That's an important thing, because people I don't think they understand how to navigate that. So let me ask you this one question, and then I guess we can get into that. What is your superpower? What would you consider your superpower? I asked everybody that on every one of them. What's your superpower?
My superpower is balancing imagination and practicality.
That's a great superpower. Okay, I love that.
That's my superpower, is balancing imagination and practicality. And so, that's how I've navigated all of this. And I'm so like this is why, like, the arts and stepping into an open mic like changed my life. And the biggest why is that's where I found that out. Prior to that moment, I was being, there were people who saw things in me and was kind of encouraging me and putting me in certain positions, but they were doing it from a position of power because they saw something I didn't.
Come
And
on.
I don't know how long that would have continued. I
Mm,
could have been hired, because I went back to school to finish my degree because I was working in corporate America. When I
mm,
finished my degree, I'd already, like, the arts world, like the arts community here was like, had already been like, yo, come do this, come do that. So, I made a decision to go that way. But if I had have gotten my degree and went back to corporate, it might have been another decade of me being a rock star for folks and not recognizing, not truly understanding what I was doing, just making sure I continue to do it.
mm,
It's this arts community that helped me understand exactly what my superpower was.
mm,
And that's why it changed my life completely. And I'm so glad you brought up, the thing about Nas and Jay is just two sides of the coin. I think this is the
mm.
thing I want folks to remember. For Jay is the path that so often we're taught to try to follow as artists. You
Mm,
know, it's you hone in on this opportunity and you get the grand stage.
mm,
And
mm,
everything comes with it. All of the things come with it, right?
mm, mm,
Ride that off into the sunset to be a billionaire. Great. You get Beyonce, all of the things. And
mm,
but the thing about that I love about Nas, which is why I say, like, the biggest benefit, like, I love studying. So, like, and I'm gonna make sure this all makes sense. So, like, when Chance was
uh-huh.
talking about how everybody was like, he's giving away music free, and for the
Yeah.
longest, he was the poster boy for indie artists. And he was like, what happens is that I make my money off of merch. The music is a gateway for people to get to me.
Mm,
And when they get to me, I'm waiting for them, and waiting for them also is this merch. So
mm,
you see me. So this is how I'm sustaining myself. And when he said that he went from everybody throwing money at him to sign to labels saying, actually, we want to see if this works. Don't sign with nobody.
mm,
And they changed the rules. He was able to get, not like, when everything shifted to him, which is so
mm,
funny because it shifted to him. He showed everybody something, and then the game kind of shifted away from him.
mm,
But what I love about that, and what I love about Nas, is that he, beat selection, stubbornness, kind of a
mm,
real, like, dedication to who he is, didn't give him everything we thought he should have got on the front end,
mm.
giving him everything he wants on the back end. And the reason
Yeah.
why is that, and I tell my young heads all the time, when at a certain point when you're out and you're active,
Mm,
folks are always watching. You never know who's watching. You never know where your name is. Your name is always more places than you are. But a
yes.
lot of folks will not engage you until they see you move a certain way,
Come through.
because they're in a place, in a position where they only operate in a certain way. And until you're ready to operate that, like, there's a certain level of ego, and, like, there's a to survive. So until you move in a certain way, they don't have time to, and, like, they see
Woo.
potential, they see what you're doing, but they want to see, how you gonna move? And they'll keep looking. And then you'll see someone kind of come at you, and
Mm.
it's because they saw you make a couple moves and they're like, okay, you ready? Let me holler at
Yes.
you. And
You just gave the game. Like you just that whole
so
little segment right there, that's the game though. Which is what goes back to when you said you can't get what you need in your own area. Like I'm an NC, but I gotta go somewhere else to be able to get that. It is people seeing you operate in your gift, be consistent, keep doing it, and then they'll all of a sudden see who else is paying attention and who you're connected to. Oh, let me work with them all of a sudden. And these people might not have wanted that. They may have wanted to work with you at first, or they may not have. But all of a sudden, once they see what happens, then it's like they can also all of a sudden believe. And they didn't have that faith to just invest in you at first. And now all of a sudden, oh, you're popular. Let's make sure we can get you, in this facility, at this space. It's something to be said about that. And that's a terrible thing, isn't it? Like, can't you just believe in me?
it is, but it's also powerful, because there's because those of us who are consistent and grind out, it's like folks are looking at you like you still like you. First off, is you still doing that? You still is that you still doing that? And then after a while, they're like, you go ahead, you stick in it. I'm so proud. Like you inspire me. Well, like either way, it's like whatever, go away. But what happens is that at a certain point, there are folks who like show up and they're like, I've been hearing about you. You work with such and such, and your name came up, and so I've been waiting for an opportunity to work with you, and now I have the right like there's these things that certain people, but see, because that's the thing about entrepreneur mindset. Entrepreneurs, business, like these folks think differently. So when you fit is when they seek you. But so they're not out just hobnobbing and running around just because. So, when you see someone like Nas got to a point where everything that he has consistently been mattered to folks who are like, okay, let's sit down at the table and let's start really opening up to some of these opportunities. Harvard loves Nas. Like,
but listen, and I feel like there's a lot of people that love you in that same respect, So like, when I see something and I'm like, oh, the Dasana's gonna be there. He's hosting. Okay, it must be official. You know what I'm saying? Like it's that stamp. It validates it. So like, hold up, I don't even know how many years ago it was when you hosted Black Theater Festival for the poetry portion, and I was like, oh yeah, we're definitely gonna go. Dasana is hosting. It was one of those things where it's kind of like you feel comfortable, but you also know. Because everybody can't host. Okay, so let's don't even need, that's a whole other, everybody cannot host. Some people don't have timing, some people are not, some people are dry, right? So you being able to feel the room out and understand and then go to different places allows for you to be a great host when it comes to things. But it's also kind of like, I think that, and you tell me this, do people say, well, why did you get that opportunity instead of somebody else, right? Like, I think sometimes people feel like, well, who did he know, to get that opportunity? Have you had that happen to you too?
Yeah, and it's so funny because it's never said like that, but that's what it is. Because you can tell the difference between like a genuine question and feel folks that are fishing. And it's like, and it's and I'm just like, okay, I guess this is what we're gonna do. All right.
Yeah.
I'll dance with you. You're not gonna get what you want, but we'll do the dance. You'll probably just when you came. But there is that. And it's and I'm always, and sometimes depending on how long you really want me to do this with you, I'll ultimately get to like, hey, what would be great is if you thought about blah, 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 blah. And then I leave them with that because then that's when they don't want to talk no more.
But you got to school them. But you got to school them and you got to make them think. And once they start to think, then it's like,
yeah, they don't want to talk.
How dare he make me think?
Because what you're not getting ready to do is you don't expect let me connect you. No.
They want to get in your pockets all of a sudden. That's what it really is. It's about that, right? And they want what you have. So I just think that this interview for me was probably not even, I don't even want to say it's more than I expected, but you gave so much good perspective that I think anybody that's in any area of discipline of the arts who really needs to understand what they need to do to monetize their talents and to really look at what they're doing and how they can use their skill set. I think that this has been an introduction course to that, right? So if people are looking for you and they want to find you, where can they find you online?
Well, Dasan Ahanu, DASANAHANU, one word, anywhere. Social media, Snapchat, Instagram, Twitter. I'm not a humongous Twitter person, but I'm on there. Facebook, as well. My artist page, it is Dasan Ahanu, and then YouTube as well. So I'm the only person with that name. So DasanAhanu.com is the website. So as long as you put both names into Google, you'll find me.
Okay, he said Google me, Dasan Ahanu. Okay, yes. All right. So do you want to leave the people with like one final word? Like what would you say to end this out? 'Cause this has been really great. And I love the business side of things. And I love the way that you put things together when you talked about the puzzle. Like for me, that was a big thing to really just see that, that connectivity is something that definitely needs to happen. But what do you want to leave the people with?
I think the one thing that I would leave everyone with is to never forget that you should leave every experience with an understanding and also with a new tool in your toolbox,
Oh,
large and small. And if you do that, you're going to be fine. If you leave it with an understanding and a new tool in your toolbox, you're going to be fine, because you're going to equip yourself to start maximizing the value of every opportunity and chance you get.
come through. I love that. That is wonderful. Okay, so let's Tammy end it out, Tammy. So everybody, listen, make sure that you always show up and show out, and that you continue to give it to the people, and that you always listen to Give It to the People Live. We always have really great guests. We do this every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And if you miss it, you can always watch the replay. So just know that this will be on Instagram. This will be, again, so depending on when you came in, this will be on YouTube, and this will also be on the podcast. So you'll get multiple opportunities to be able to listen to the wisdom of Dasan Ahanu. So Dasan, thank you so much for being on this evening. And I'll send you an email with all the good details so you can then replay this and share it and all of the good things. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
All right. Bye, y'all.